Hello everyone, today we will be talking about the San Jose Sharks and how dramatic their season could be. Before we start, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get to it. So starting off, I want to say that the Sharks are probably the hardest team in the league to make videos for just because of where the organization is right now. Of course, part of the organization that is dramatic is Evander Kane and all the drama that comes with him. At this point, we all know what's happening with Kane. He's had a lot of accusations against him, and he does have a gambling addiction, and is in a ton of debt. So, it's so bad at this point that players on the team don't want to play on the same team with him. The problem is, Kane's problematic, and I don't think it's going to change. We know that he's problematic. We know that it's going to be hard for him to find a new team, because a team has to understand what they're getting themselves into. Which leads to the next discussion of, if it's hard to trade him and players say they refuse to play with him, are they going to actually not play with him, or are they going to suck it up and get it done, at least in the time being? So I think that he probably will be able to play with the other teammates. They will suck it up and just say, let's get him out of here. But ironically, I think that the Vegas Golden Knights would be a great team for him. They're a little bit weird of his group. They're just a ragtag group. They came from that, the Golden Misfits tag, but they don't have the cap space to make it happen, and I don't know if they'd want to take the gamble with their team chemistry. I couldn't see it happening, but he would fit in Vegas, except for the problem that, Vegas is probably one of the easiest places to gamble all your money away in the world. Now, trust me when I do also say this one as well, the Kane drama is not done. I could see a documentary from his perspective coming out years later. I'm talking like 20, 30 years later about how the Sharks did him dirty. It's not over. We're going to hear all about it down the road. Now, money is a big part of that, and it's part of the team as well. And we talked about money with Kane so far with his debt, and I want to continue to do so here as the Sharks are paying 3 players almost a third of their team cap, and it is not paying off. Now, those are blue liners Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, and Marc-Edouard Vlasic. And I probably said his name wrong, but he did a YouTube video talking about how it's hard to pronounce his name. Now, combined, they make $26.5 million this upcoming season, but they definitely don't provide too much in terms of all that value. That is almost $30 million. And when you have 2 former Norris winners and one of the most underrated defensemen in the league, even a few years ago back in his prime with Vlasic, you'd think you'd have a recipe for success. Unfortunately for San Jose, it's been a recipe for disaster, as all players on this list, these 3 players, are getting overpaid, and they're all in their 30s, which is not a good thing for a team, especially if they're not contending for a Stanley Cup. The Sharks actually lead the league for cap spent on defensemen, and a big chunk of that goes to Erik Karlsson, who is the league's highest paid defenseman coming into the year. Now, things haven't worked out very well, but can these big name players get results? For Burns and Vlasic, I think no. Burns is 36, and he shouldn't be on this contract in the first place. And it's kind of sad for Sharks fans, and Burns, not so much for Burns because he gets money, but he's got 3 years left on this deal after this contract. He's a guy that likes to fire away at the net, and it's not working right now because it's not going in how it used to. He was shooting at an above-average rate for a few years. Now it's going back to what his earlier years were for his average. I'm not even going to talk about it anymore because you don't want to pay someone this much money that far into their career. I mean, his deal expires after he's 39 if they were an extremely great player. And I'm not saying he wasn't at one point, but you need some like Sid the Kid stuff right there. Now, I love Burns as a player, but I think he's seen better days. And Vlasic, he's looking like a black hole on offense, and I just couldn't see him bouncing back to a degree that he'd be worth the $7 million a year that he's got at 34 with 4 years left on his deal after this year. Which leaves us with Erik Karlsson, and I feel really bad for the Sharks here. Karlsson was, a Norris contending defenseman just a few years ago, and injuries have and likely will kill his career or what's left of it. He is hampered on both sides of the ice. He's a liability on defense. He is bad defensively at this point, and I hate to see it happen to him, but it is the reality. This is another contract that'll probably be another problem for San Jose. I think I don't know what they're going to do. I think for Karlsson, he'd be better suited just to focus on the offense at this point, and it really is sad to see how it's turned out. So, in summary of this topic, no, I don't think that these contracts will be able to be lived up to by these players. It's sad, but it, again, is the reality. which leads us to the unfortunate topic of a rebuild. The Pacific Division team has been holding off a little bit, with GM Doug Wilson saying repeatedly it's not a rebuild. Okay, Doug, it is time to embrace the rebuild. Moving out guys like Kane, Burns, Wysick, and potentially even Carlson are probably the smart things to do here to kickstart the rebuild. Yes, you'll probably have to retain a good amount of the salary in order to get picks, but it's better to get picks and build towards the future than to just keep doing what you're doing. In the past 2 years have not worked out well for the Sharks. And if they could even tank this year, that would be good for them. They've got some good drafts coming up, and it is something to be really excited about. Either way, for Sharks fans, the path that they take is going to be painful. It's going to be rough, and I apologize for that. It's going to be excruciating, and I don't envy you. I'm sure you're thinking, if you're a Sharks fan that doesn't know me too well, oh my gosh, the past 2 season previews, he's been a jerk and he hates our team. I don't. It's just that they've got some bad contracts that are really hampering them right now. Now, what do you think? Do you think the Sharks season will be dramatic? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.